Hello everybody, this is not going to be a gaming video, so I apologize if all you expect on this channel are gaming videos. After all, it is called Gaming the Systems. But I did get permission from you guys. I posted a poll and I said, hey, if I did a top 10 favorite bands video, would you watch it? And most of you said you would. And well, we'll see if that actually happens. But this is my top 10 favorite bands of all time. Let's start with number 10, and that is White Zombie. Just a warning, you're gonna see a lot of 1990s bands in this list, and that's because my musical tastes were developed in the 1990s. Even new bands today, I prefer them to sound like bands that I listened to in the 1990s. So White Zombie, what is it I like about them? Well, I like how they mix little sound effects in with their music. I like how you can almost dance to the music, yet it's very heavy. Not as heavy as other bands or whatever, but it has great rhythm. I love the album La Sexorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1. I used to listen to it from the beginning to the end. So that's always a good sign that you like a band when you can take a whole album and listen to the whole thing. But I also like Astro Creep 2000. Some of my favorite songs are Thunder Kiss 65, Black Sunshine, Electric Head Part 1 and 2, Supercharger Heaven. I have seen White Zombie a couple times in concert, and I will say they're kind of disappointing in concert. And of course, White Zombie broke up, and then the group Rob Zombie formed, and they kind of sound like White Zombie, but I prefer listening to White Zombie, but Rob Zombie's okay. And I do have a shirt from when I went to a White Zombie concert, and here it is. This is one of their album covers. And on the back, you can see some tour dates. I don't think it has any years on it. 1995. So yeah, I think these concerts would have been in 1995. I have another one. I don't know if this is from the same show. It's possible I bought this at a store, but I would usually go to concerts and buy some of the shirts there, including some of the shirts people sell in the parking lot, the bootleg shirts. So, and number 9 is going to be a surprise for some of you, so you might want to just grab onto something. This is a newer band, but they are very heavy and I enjoy their sound, and that is Baby Metal. I feel weird saying that. Baby Metal is a Japanese band, and all the songs are in Japanese for the most part. There's a few English words here and there. There's one main singer, and then there's 2 dancers that kind of do synchronized dancing alongside the singer. It's so weird describing this band. But behind them is a metal band, and they all come together and form this unique sound. Some of the songs are so good, I can just listen to them again and again. I prefer listening to the way they sound in concert rather than their initial video releases of some of these songs. Now, what I don't like is how young the 2 side dancers were when they began the band. They are in their 20s today, so everything's okay. I feel like these young people may have been forced into this band by their parents. I don't know what the story was. If you have never heard of this band, I do recommend you go look up their song Headbanger and put the word live in your search, because like I said, they sound better live. I also like their songs Gimme Chocolate, Catch Me If You Can. I have no idea what they're saying in these songs, but it's a really unique concept, at least to me as an American. Number 8 is The Offspring. I love the songs Gotta Get Away, Self-Esteem, Come Out and Play, Pretty Fly for a White Guy, Why Don't You Get a Job. The Americana album is the one that sold me on The Offspring. That's another album I used to play from beginning to end. It felt like a testament to American society, if that makes sense. Now, for the most part, I don't care about the meaning of lyrics and stuff, but there does appear to be a lot of meaning in their lyrics, and it just sounds very good. I mean, Pretty Fly for a White Guy is a very original song. I've never heard anything like it since. There's actually some comedy in some of these songs too. There's one song where they're talking about picking up a piece of poop, I think. But you can never go wrong with Gotta Get Away and Self-Esteem. Those are just iconic songs. I am heavily influenced by a rock station close to where I live, and the things they play there are pretty much the way I get exposed to all these bands. Number 7 should come as no surprise, and that is Green Day. And they're kind of like the Offspring. They have some interesting lyrics and some of them are funny, but there's just a whole vibe with Green Day that makes me happy inside. They're very uplifting songs, most of them. And they have so many good songs. Some of the ones I like are Longview, Basket Case, When I Come Around, American Idiot, Wake Me Up When September Ends, Brain Stew, Minority. They have a very unique sound. If you hear a random sentence from one of their songs, you know it's Green Day. They're very unique. And I appreciate the fact that they are still making music today, unlike some of the other bands on this list. And their new stuff sounds pretty good. I know from my other top 10 videos, there's going to be people in the comments that say you missed a band, or I can't believe you didn't have such and such band in there. I get those all the time on my video game top 10s, like my top 10 favorite NES games. There cannot be anything incorrect about a top 10 favorite list. There cannot be anything missing from a top 10 favorite list. Music is very subjective, even more subjective than video games. After all, we are talking about sound waves. That's all music is. So it's kind of weird when you think about it. Number 6 is Megadeth. Need I say more? I've been listening to them for years and I've bought a lot of their albums, and I cannot say that there's really an album I can listen to from beginning to end, but there are a lot of good songs spread amongst many different albums that they've had. Some of the songs I enjoy the most are Wake Up Dead, Peace Sells, Into the Lungs of Hell, In My Darkest Hour, Holy Wars, Hangar 18, Countdown to Extinction, Skin of My Teeth, and Symphony of Destruction, of course. I love the rhythm and the sound that they produce with their guitars. This is another band that I do not think sounds that good in concert. And I don't think Dave Mustaine, the lead singer, behaves very well in concert. When I saw them in like the mid-1990s, I just remember him just yelling at people in the audience and stuff like that. He gets on these tirades and he can't control his anger or whatever. But regardless, I don't care what these people do in their personal lives. Their controversies or whatever don't affect my preference for their music. And here's a shirt I got from a Megadeth concert. I think I got this in 1993 or so. By the way, I do have a pile of these shirts and I'll be showing them to you today, but I don't wear any of them. They smell like mildew. I recently found them at my childhood home in a garbage bag, which had been on the floor for a while, so I don't think they would fit me, and truthfully, they didn't fit me back then. I just have a weird body, so nothing ever fits me. Number 5 is Korn. I was a big believer in Korn in the early days before they became popular. Over the years, they have made a lot of albums. According to my research, they have made 14 of them, and they're still making them today. I love the songs Blind, Chutes and Ladders, Adidas, Freak on a Leash, Falling Away From Me, Make Me Bad. This is another band that is very unique. You know instantly you are listening to a Korn song if you just hear a random clip from one of their albums. Their songs have a creepiness to them, and they have a very dark vibe, and sometimes they talk about very serious subjects. He mixes in some bagpipes sometimes. He does some little beatboxing things in his songs. They're very original. Falling Away From Me is probably my favorite song of theirs. It just hits all the right notes for me. By the way, this is a difficult band to talk about amongst people who don't follow that type of music. I remember being at my grocery store job and just talking to this guy, and he would always be asking me, do you still listen to Korn? And he would just love the fact that there's a band called Korn, and it was a butt of all kinds of jokes. Okay, you saw this one coming. Number 4 is Alice in Chains. Boy, oh boy, I remember being in the car and hearing a song. I didn't know who had sung the song, but I'm like, that song sounds good. I wonder who that is. It took me a long time to track down who it was. I didn't have the internet back then. It was this song called Them Bones, and it was a hit song for them, and that gave birth to other songs that they played on the radio for Alice in Chains, and I just fell in love with them. I had to go out and buy that album called Dirt. Talked about that in a previous video, how I used to play that album on my Sega CD, and eventually something bad happened with that. I like Man in the Box, Sea of Sorrow, Down in a Hole, Them Bones, Rooster, Angry Chair, Wood, Heaven Beside You, and I like to listen to the Jar of Flies album. It's a short album and the songs are very, very mellow. I love the way they basically have 2 singers, or at least they used to, and their voices blend together to make this sound that has never been heard before. It's just so relaxing when they hit those notes in those songs. Whew, I love it. I love Alice in Chains. Moving on, this is kind of like Alice in Chains' brother, and that is Soundgarden. That's another band that just hits me right in here. I like Rusty Cage, I like Black Hole Sun, I like Jesus Christ Pose, The Day I Tried to Live, Fell on Black Days, My Wave, Let Me Drown, Head Down, Burden in My Hand. The song Outshined is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just so uplifting to me. But another one of my favorite songs of all time is Pretty Noose. That song doesn't get a lot of radio play, at least on the stations that I listen to. But man, if you have not heard Pretty Noose, go listen to it on YouTube right now. It exemplifies everything I love about Soundgarden. Number 2 is Pantera. Oh yeah, I waited a long time to say that word on this channel. Okay, so Vulgar Display of Power is one of my favorite albums of all time. I can listen to it from beginning to end. The album cover to that is amazing. It's probably the best album cover of all time. A guy being punched in the face. I love the songs Mouth for War, A New Level, This Love, Effin' Hostile, Regular People, By Demons Be Driven, and those are all just from that one album. I also like certain songs from their Cowboys from Hell album, Cemetery Gates, Domination. I like their Far Beyond Driven album. I like I'm Broken, Becoming, Strength Beyond Strength. They are just heavy. The guitar work in Vulgar Display of Power is just amazing. It's amazing from a technical level, but it hits you hard. Now, how did I first come across Pantera? I actually heard them in concert before I heard any of their songs on their albums, and they were opening for the band Skid Row. I actually still have a shirt from that concert. The front of the shirt just says Skid Row, but in the back it says both their names. And Pantera was just this small dinky band that opened for Skid Row, but it was a totally different style of music from Skid Row. And I think this concert booking was basically the beginning of a new age in rock music. We were going from the sounds of Skid Row to the sounds of Pantera in the 1990s. That was an encapsulation of the change that was happening in rock music at that time. After that concert, I went out and bought the Vulgar Display of Power album, and my mind was forever changed. It's time for some honorable mentions, and there's a lot of them, and I'm just gonna read them off real fast here. Marilyn Manson, Falling in Reverse, Rage Against the Machine, Ghost, Linkin Park, Nothing More, Bush, and Prong. If you've never heard of Prong, go watch some of their videos. It's an amazing band. I can't believe they didn't become more popular than they did. So now we are at number 1. This band is what transitioned me into this type of music, the type of music I've been showing you today. And I first heard them in 1991. Let me tell you what was going on in 1991 for me. I was a very rowdy teenager, getting into all kinds of trouble, pursuing women I had no business pursuing, drinking a lot more alcohol than I should have, going to parties, tons of friends, and all kinds of rowdiness was going on at that time. But I was in the car with a woman and we were kind of hanging out, and she started playing this song. And I'm like, what is this song? This sounds awesome. And that was it. That was the spark that gave way to all the other bands on this list and changed my listening habits forever. And that song, believe it or not, was Sad But True by Metallica. Metallica is my number one band, and it's by a mile. I have listened to Metallica probably about 50 times more than all the other bands on this list. I don't want to oversell them. I'm sure you know who Metallica is. But that song on the Black Album that they had in the early 90s was a bridge for me. I went from listening to pop and dance music to listening to heavy music and rock music and eventually grunge. And it was all because of that one song on that one album. I listened to the other songs on the album, and I started to hear a lot of songs on that album on the radio as well. I was like instant fan of Metallica. Before I heard that song, I had heard of them, but I didn't know much about them and didn't have an opinion about them. But after I bought that album, I'm like, I gotta have more. Do they have other albums? Of course they do. I went to the record store that had CDs, and I was flipping through these long CD boxes that they had back then and see, oh, there's another Metallica album, Justice for All. I'll get that one and try it. So I tried Justice for All and Justice for All. And wow, I was amazed. It was even better than the Black Album in my opinion. And I'm like, oh, I gotta hear more. So I bought Master of Puppets. And then I bought Ride the Lightning. In recent years, I have rebought those CDs and I listen to these in the car. Metallica has shifted gears a lot over the years, but they are so talented whenever they do shift gears. I always enjoy the new type of music they are producing. Like when they went through their Load era, when they came out with Load and Reload, that was a shifting of gears. It sounded different, but it still sounded good. I want to say that I was not the only one who was transitioned to heavy metal through the Black Album. I want to say there's probably millions of people out there, maybe even some of my own viewers, who transitioned to heavy music through listening to the Metallica Black Album, because this was a huge success. It got a lot of radio play, and it was easier to listen to than traditional heavy metal. They kind of mellowed out a little bit on this album, but it still sounded good. I ended up seeing Metallica in many, many concerts, and I have some shirts. And I don't know what concert this would have been. I think it would have been maybe the late 1990s. It has a gorgeous front and back. Here's an And Justice for All shirt. This one I did wear a lot back in the days because, man, this thing is worn. And I have a very similar shirt, and this would have been from their Black Album tour. I probably bought this at a concert during that long tour. On the back, it kind of shows the stadium setup. Then we got this one. I probably got this in the mid-1990s. It has the stages of life on the back: birth, school, Metallica, death. I know a lot of people don't like Metallica, and maybe one of the reasons is because they are so popular and they make so much money. And when a rock band becomes popular, it's sometimes frowned upon, and they are still making pretty good music, and they're in their 50s now. I'm so glad that all the members are still alive, but even if they did stop or if some of them died or whatever, we still have this large body of music to pull from. But a lot of you are probably wondering, where's Slayer? Well, I was never really introduced to Slayer back then in the 1990s. I mean, I heard about them, I saw the shirts, and I knew people who listened to Metallica and these other bands also listened to Slayer. But I just didn't have an opportunity to get into them back then. if I wasn't first introduced to something during the 90s, it was harder for it to, you know, have an effect on me. Now, going back and listening to Slayer today, I still can't get into them. I'm sorry. It's just, I've listened to what's considered their best songs, and I just can't get into them. But anyway, let me know what your top 10 favorite bands are. It'd be interesting to see if some of mine are on your list, and you guys can compare against each other's as well. But thank you for watching the video. I know it wasn't video game related, but it is nice to get a list like this off my chest and out there onto the internet, and I hope you got some entertainment from it. See you next time.